Hello everyone, welcome to the God Stack. Hello Bruno, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. Coming from a long day, but here we go.
Here we go, ready
Here it
to
is to here it is to
session.
another the God Stack session.
Nice. Well, in the last session we've done all the users, so the user domain. So we did the create user, update users, and all these things. Today I want to validate the data because this is very important when we are working with an API to validate the the data you have. We will understand that GraphQL does some of the things, so we don't need to do some of the things, but we need to do some other things. Okay, so we're gonna work with this, and we're going to implement some tests in the API and check how it goes. Okay. Let's do it.
Let's go for it.
Nice. Well, I believe that everybody can hear me at home. I wish that it is okay. So what I'm going to do now is to work with the data validation. But there's some of the things that we don't need to do. The first thing that we need to do, we don't need to validate the types in GraphQL because the domain is going to do that for us. So we don't need to validate, for example, if code is a string or not, if the ID is a string name, or if the is deleted is boolean or not. We don't need to do that. And today this is gonna make a little bit more sense. So why we did that and why we separated the user data from the payload when we are doing the merge user. Why do we separate this guy? And it's gonna be a little bit more, it will make more sense. So let's do that. So let's open the merge. And what we need to do when we are working with the data, we need to validate it when it's update and create. Okay, so what would be the idea? The idea would be we do something like validate, okay, let's call something some kind of function called validate, and we are going to pass to this function, of course, the context and the user data. Okay, and this function needs to be responsible to validate the data for us. Again, not the types, we don't need to do that. The only thing, for example, emails should be a valid email, so we need to validate that. The length of a string, because in GraphQL we're going to validate if it's a string, but we are not going to validate the GraphQL does not validate if the length of the string is something that we expect it to be. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a function called validator. So we need to do that. And we need a function into the context that does all this work for us. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create this function. Okay. To validate all the data. I'm just going to get something that I already have. I've did that. I know that some people will say, could I use something like happy or any other validator? Yes, you could do that, but again, I believe it's gonna be too much because GraphQL it's already validating all the types for us, so it's just a small part that it needs to be validated. So let me just show you this function that I've created. This is not a good code. It needs to improve a little bit, but the idea of this code is I'm going to pass to this function, this validator, a max, min, or a length, or if it's a num, a number, an email domain, if it's required or not. So I can pass both of the information. If I want to check for length and how much of the length I want to do and in which field I want to do that. So this is basically what this function is doing. I'm not going to go inside this code because it's not, how can I say, it's not important. But the idea is just to validate the data. If you want to, you can get these, improve, or do any kind of, anything you can do with this code. But the essence of this, it's just getting this kind of validation. If you want to add another one, just create another case and create a function to do that. For example, for the length, we're gonna have this that's gonna check if it's a string or not, and if it's required, the mean and the max, and it's gonna return true or false. And in the end, if there is any kind of errors, it's gonna to throw an Apollo error, sending that the parameter is not valid, and it's going to send back to the user the errors. Remember that when we do a throw with Apollo error, the API will stop in that very moment, and from now on it's just the error that's going to be returned. So we can do that safely. Okay. So the other thing that I want to do it's a little bit more the explanation is a little bit more it's improvement. So let me just show you this. So this is more clear. So what's going to happen? I'm going to pass a key. That's, for example, name, picture, email, username, password. Okay. And then I'm going to pass the test that I want to do. So I want to test length from 2 to 150 in name, from 2 to 150 in picture. I want to test these as an email. So, and then its lengths for these other things. Okay. And I'm going to call it the validator. Okay. And of course, in the end, this is going to get all the rules that I have, and it's going to get the params. The params, of course, here is going to be the user data. And we are going to call that functions that I showed you previously. And that function, it's going to do something. If it's everything okay, it's going to return true. If it's not, the validation function will stop in the Apollo error. All right? So let's get to the merge. Let's import that. So import validator from, and then let's get it from the validator. Validators index.js. Okay, so now I have my validator, and if I pass the context, the user data, before does the update, this is gonna work. So we're gonna copy these as well, and before it does the create user, we will do that as well. So let's go to the API. Let's do the clean and Docker compose app. Let's see what's going on. The photos. This is just the network. Okay. I'm in the API. Did I change anything? No, I have the Docker compose. This means that Docker network prune. Yes. Let me just clean all my network and try it again. No, it's not. What's going on? The data? Contacts can't start. Data. What? Building the API. what's going on. Service API faded, build faded. So it's trying to build the API, and the context is here. This is the registry with environment, and everything. It's here. Let's just sudo. I didn't think that is that, but let's just clear this and try to update again. Yes, it was this. Why? Sometimes software development. I don't know why it has a problem with the dot data, but it does. Okay, no problem at all. Okay, so the API is working. Let's test the API and get api.local.tgds.com. There you go, it's working, but we are going to use Sonia instead of using these. Let's go to TGS. Okay, so when we are going to create user, let's see if the validation it's working. For example, the name should be between 2 and 150. So let's get the name like just one letter. Okay, and let's create a user. CC score validation is, of course, we need to put that into the core. I forgot that. So import everything from, and let's get the validation. Yes, and then just need what's it's not import, just export. Okay, there we go. And let's do these now. Nice. So what's happening here? It's an error. Okay, I have a message. I have the code. Params argument it's invalid. So something it's invalid in my software, and then into the detail, it's gonna give me all the errors that's happening. For example, let's pass an invalid email, and let's send it. There we go. So in zero, it's gonna show you the key. That's the problem. So the name is the problem, and a message with all the problems around about name. So the value should be 2 and 150. And email, it's not valid email. Let's check another one. Let's get, for example, a username. Username should be between 5 and 50. So let's get 4, for example, and it's going to stack all the errors in here. So let's just pass 2 of these things. So there we go. The password again, it's doing some errors as well, and you can stack the errors. For example, for email, we need a length between 2 and 200. Okay, let's save these, and when I pass an email that's just like 1, for example, and send it, it's gonna pass like, now you have 2 different errors for email. One, it's about the invalid email, and another one, it's about the length of the thing. This is really, really, really good for the front end. When you are doing something in the back end, don't forget the front end, okay? And remember that the front end, it's kind of your client, and you need to do a good work answering and giving answers of what's going on. One of the things that when I'm working in the front end, and I've received an error, for example, HTTP 500, and you don't know why, and you just look at that and say, what's happening here? And when you pass, for example, 404 or 400, and you don't specify 404, of course it's 404, but for hundreds you don't specify what was the error. I've worked in backends that, for example, the error was the date. I should send, for example, year, month, and day, and I was passing day, month, and year, something like that. And the backend just sent me 500. That's it, 500. And no, try to figure out what's going on. So don't do that. If you're doing a backend, remember to specify everything to whatever it's calling. If it's a front end, if it's another API or whatever, give good answers. And one of the things that we've done in this API, it's about the errors. So as you saw, I'm formatting the error. So I'm not just, for example, giving to the front end the stack trace of all the files that has an error. The front end doesn't need that. It just needs a clear message that's always the same. And do that when you are doing a backend. Send a very clear message with everything that's needed to the front end. Make the life of the front end a better place. Okay? So this is the reason we do the formatting error thing. And of course, I'm printing the error in the logs. So you will be able to see the errors in the logs. So you're gonna see that it's red. So if any kind of error has happened, it's gonna be red in the console log, and you can clearly see that something wrong happened. So this is small things that you do that's gonna make everyone's life better. So when another software developer that's in your team gets this kind of system, is gonna see, hey, I clearly can see that there was an error in the system. It's right there in red that there was an error. Okay, so if you're a backend, please do that. Make the life of the front end better. And I believe this is one of the ways. You clear message, a clear code message, and all the details that's needed in order to do that. Okay. So now let's test to create a user. Let's do it. Perfect. This is you creating the user. So my data, it's being validated, and this is the first victory of the day. Okay. So we have all the validation thing. Another thing I want to do, it's this. So I'm going to do this if as well here. So I'm going to if, but instead of user create, it's gonna be a user delete. Actually, I don't even need to do that. I can just call the authorization, because the authorization is it's gonna delete the user. So I don't. I'm sorry. The authorization, if there is any kind of error, the authorization will close the request, and it will answer as an error. Okay. So I believe that we have everything in order. This is really good. Validate the validated user is the call to validate the user. Let's just get to the database. I want to check if the user it's there. Okay, so TGS public table and users. There we go. My user is there. I'm just going to get the approval token. Okay, just gonna get this approval token, and I'm going to validate this user and see if it works. There you go, it's working. So now I can log in with this user. I believe that when I've created, I've lost. Yeah, it's all two here. Let's create another one. This one, which is 678 code. Yeah. So now that I've created another one, I'm going to get the approval token as well. Let's validate the user, and let's try to log in the user. What? Users, create user. Breno was here. Yes. it's this. Of course. Nice. So everything's there, everything's working. Our API, it's kind of pretty right now. I'm just going to commit it. We'll add validation to user domain. Okay, nice. What we need to do now is to do the tests. So how do we do that? Okay, how do we do the tests? The first thing that we need to do is to add a library. So I'm just going to do the exec here, iteratable, the API, and yarn add. It's gonna be development, just for the development, and we are going to add jest. We're going to use jest to do all the tests for us. And let's see how it goes. Well, now that we have jest installed in our API, we need to create a in package JSON. Let's do something like test. This is gonna call jest, and I like to do it verbosely. So now when we work yarn test, it's gonna run the tests, okay? But I don't have any, and I need to create the tests, okay? Now, there are some people does it in some way, and some people does it in the other way. Hello, Melky. He's in the chat. Welcome to the Godstack, and I hope you enjoy. We are working with tests today. How to do the tests. So some software developers create a folder, a separated folder, just like these, and do the tests into a separated folder. Even my VS Code, it's understanding that folder. I don't like to do that. I don't like to create separated folder to the tests, because when you do that, the first feeling that I have is that the test is something separated from my API. It's not part of my API. It's something, it feels like an outsider, and it shouldn't be an outsider. It should be something that it's part of the code. This is the way I feel, and this is the way I think. But there is no rights and wrongs. You could do both of the ways. But in my point of view, I like to do the tests with the API. Like the tests is part of everything that's happening, and it will make you remember to do the tests. I don't know, Bruno, how do you like to do the tests? Do you do the tests with the code, or you separate it into a folder?
I personally separate into a folder, but it depends. Sometimes I don't even do the test, but I should do.
You should
Yeah. I'm confessing here.
Yeah, but this is it's
Sometimes.
not. Yes, it's not just you. There is a lot of companies that doesn't do the tests.
But don't get me wrong, guys. We should do the test. It's a very important part of the development and the software. It's a very important thing. So do the tests. I'm learning more about Jest too. So in the next projects, I should do all the tests.
Yeah, and well, when we are talking about tests, it's not just tests. It's a world, you know. I believe that next next live, I will call to a friend. I believe that maybe she's in the chat, but I will call friends to explain better the tests. I'm not a test engineer, so I don't know too much about all these words, because we have backends, we have front ends, we have designers, and we have testers engineers. It's really complex word that you need to understand. For us developers, most of the time you are going to do the unit tests. So it's the minimum what of the things that you need to do. The minimum part of that, it would be the unit tests. But you have integration tests, and well, you have a lot of them. In the front end, we will work with Cypress, we will work with Jest as well, and we will check a little bit more of tests. But the unit is not the only one that you can have in your API. Okay, let's go to the code. I'm just going to do that right here. But the first thing that we need to do is to think about the tests. For example, where should I do my tests? Okay, let's get for example this file. Should I test this file like unit tests? I'm talking about unit tests now. Should I test this file? What do you think, Bruno?
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's not necessary.
Yeah, as a unit test, yes, as a unit test, I think that's not necessary as well. So you shouldn't need to test the instance when you instantiate the server. You know, it's just instantiating the server, and for example, all the errors will be tested into the domains that is needed. So we don't need to do that. Okay, so if we don't need to do that, let's just check for example, this one I don't need to test as well. There's nothing here, it's just merging all the schemas. Okay, so I don't need to get too much attention to that. This is just compiling all the information, so you don't need to test this as well. This is just compiling all the functions. So it's not needed to do unit tests with that as well. This is the validator. So we are going to test not these, but we are going to test the call that we do for this one. So this is not actually necessary to do the test. So now we have these three folders. Okay. The domain, it's not needed to test it because it's just strings. You know. Just if you want to check if the string is exactly the string you want to, but I don't think that it's necessary to test the domain. Okay, domain is just explaining the data for you. And now we have the infrastructure. And this is one of the things that people get a little bit lost. Should I test the infrastructure? Well, as you can see, the infrastructure is just calling the next. So, as we separated our layers in the software development, so the infrastructure is just one place, you don't need to test it, because you don't need to test what the database is going to do with the data. This is kind of not your problem. So it's not the problem that you want to focus on. So if we don't want to test the domain, the infrastructure, where goes the test? Of course, the test is gonna be focused on the application layer, because into the application layer we have the business logic, and this is important for your system. This is where your system it's gonna do the things. For example, if a user has the proper authorization to do that or not, so you're gonna allow it to do that or not. So this is where your tests is gonna be focused. So the divisions of the layers that we did, it's gonna help us to understand where to test or not, where it's the most sensible part of my system, where should be tested a lot and what we should do the test. So let's start, for example, with the query. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're just going to create a new file here, and we're gonna call it users.test.js. Okay, there you go. So now I have my tests here. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to call something called describe. It's a function. It's a jest function. Okay. For the describe, we're gonna pass what we are going to do. So we are going to test the users queries. Nice. And when I'm going to test the user queries, I need to pass a function, and inside this function, it's gonna be my test. Okay. So every test I want to do, I need to do an it. Oh, no, not this one. Yes, this one. Okay, it. Então, for example, it will check if true. Let's gonna just do that. And for every it, we're going to pass a function as well. Okay. And inside of every it that we have, we could create an expect. Okay. So let's do that. Expect. So when you do the expect, you need to pass some information. So let's, for example, call true, and let's call something to be true. Okay, and of course this test should pass. Okay, because we're expecting true to be true. So let's just see this, and there we go. So I'm checking if true is true. This error, it's because in the slinked JSON, I need to do, I believe that's just and true. Let's do yes. So if you do the just true into the slinked, the slinked will recognize the tests in your application. Okay. Nice. So this is a very simple test. And another very important thing, as you can see, I'm running the test inside the container. Why I'm doing that? So why I'm running the test inside the container? Because the container has all the environment that's necessary for my API to work. This means that the test should be done inside the container as well. I can do that. I can just run the test outside. Of course, the true to be true, it's gonna work. But at some point, getting some information and merging with all the information, trying to test everything, this is gonna give me an error, an unexpected error, and it will be because you're not inside the container. So when I run the test, I need to do that inside. Okay. So the first test that we're gonna do, it's gonna be it's user query. So will fetch for users. It's gonna be a very simple test. Okay. So what I need to do, I need first of things import users. Users. That's the function from users.js. It's the file it's in the same structure that I have here. Okay, and what I want to do, I want to do something like that. So in order to do it, await async. Perfect. This is gonna call this function. Okay, so this function will be called. Let's remove this console log. We don't need it anymore. Okay, so this function will be called, and I want to test the answer of when I call this function. Okay, So what I'm going to do, I'm going to expect, expect my users mocked to strict equal, okay, and then I'm going to pass the result, okay. The result would be the result that we expect the function to be a response for that function. In this case, we're going to mock all the data. So I will get a just an ID, and the ID should be an user ID. I will create this user ID in a moment, okay? So it's just this object. So when I fetch for the users, I want to receive back an object with an ID, and inside of this ID, an user ID, okay? So how are we gonna do that? Of course, when we call the users, it's expecting from us the this one we don't need, but it's expecting the parameters and the context. So how do I will mock this information? Okay, first of all, I'm just going to get the shared from, of course, the shared that I have. Okay, why I'm going to do that? Because I need to mock the context, and as we remember the context. So let's create here const context. It's whatever it's in the shared plus some user, okay, some user, and I'm going to mock the user here as well, okay. So let's create a user with an ID. That's going to be user ID. We're going to create that in a moment. We're going to pass a user as a valid user. So valid user, it's going to be true, and the permissions. Okay. So the permissions needs to be an array, and we need to do this like that. So it's an user, and this user has the permission reading the users. Okay, let's just create an ID here. So let's just get a real one. So this is just it's fake, but it's a UUID that it's possible to use. Okay. The other thing that we need to do is to pass the parameters. Okay, let's just get this from here. So I'm not going to pass an ID, so I want all the users. So I'm going to fetch for all the users, okay? And I don't want the deleted ones. Nice. So when I try to do the tests, this is gonna give me some errors. And the errors, it's because when it tries to get the information from the database, it's not going to do that. It will not be able to do this thing. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, it's to mock the database. Okay, all the call of the database. I'm just going to copy this from here, and then I'm going to explain it to you what's happening here. So let's do that. Okay. So there we go. First of we're going to go do the core. I didn't even need to do that, but the core, it's going to be here. So the user is the user and the database. Remember that when we have our context, and the context is here, I have the database, it's going to be a next and a next nest. So I need to mock the call of the next and next next. The next is just a bunch of functions. And what I'm doing here, it's exactly mocking the call of the database. So when for example, when you are doing the read users, so you're calling the read users in the infrastructure, as I'm passing the context to that, so in the read users is going to do all these calling. So you need a database. Inside the database, you need a function that's a next function, and you're gonna pass a string to it, and then you need a function that's a select, not where in, and all that. So what I've done here is just to mock it all. The only function that actually returns something for me, because I don't care of what the database is doing, I'm just care the last thing that it's calling, that's this one. So in the end, I just want to expect that this function answers me the data I want to. So it's going to return a promise, and I'm going to pass a resolve function to that promise, and it's going to return me exactly this. So when I do that and I call for that function should answer exactly this. And this is what I'm testing here. So I'm expecting that when I call the user's function, the end, the response, it's going to be exactly this one. We have a question. It's gonna. Do you need to mock all the functions? Won't it mock the topmost, mock everything below it? I believe I didn't get the question. Do you need to mock all the functions? You saying about all the database functions. If I just mock the first one, but it's because we are working with functional programming. So when you're doing the functional programming, if you take a look at the read, it's gonna do, I'm gonna call this function, and then it's gonna call this one, and then it's gonna call this one. This is how the functional programming works. So it's first function, then the second one, then another one. So it's not just calling this, and then from the product of this is gonna call the second one. It's just actually, as a functional programming language, it's gonna call all the functions that is here. So if you just mock the first function, the other ones that we'll try to call, it's not gonna be called. And this is the reason you need to do that. Let's see. Okay. Let's see the error that's here. Okay, this is because we are using modules in the backend. We are using modules, so let me just try to remember. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. In the, well, we are using type module. This means that we can do the imports, and just it's not prepared to work with the imports and things. So we need to pass some information to the Jest saying, hey, I'm using modules. So this is how you do it. You just pass the node options as experimental VM modules, and then you call the Jest, and I believe that now it's gonna work. Let's see. Nope, it's still not doing that. Contract expected token. Did I didn't save the file. Yeah, of course. I didn't save this one, and did I save this one? Oh, of course. Let's test it. There we go. And it's passing. So, again, let's think about the test and what we've done. Okay. The first thing, we've imported the function that we have. Okay. So we imported this function. We wanted to test this function. So this function, I'm going to pass these parameters, and I'm going to receive whatever read user is going to give me back. Okay. So I need to test that. What I did, I've created all the information that's needed to pass to the users, just like the parameters. I'm going to pass an ID new, deleted false, so I want all the users into the database, okay? And I need to create the context. As I already have the shared, so I'm going to get the core, it's going to be shared core. The user, I'm just going to create a fake user here and pass inside of it with the proper permission. Then I'm going to mock the next, so all the calls that next does, and then I'm just going to get the next and solve it. What Albus said in the chat, it's just to do that. He's saying, hey, just mock the first one. So for example, this is just going to answer just a object, okay? And then because the answer is going to be here, so you just need to make this thing return something. If you try to run the tests right now, you're gonna be failing. And as you can see, it's passing in the first execution, that's next. But the second one, it's gonna say, hey, I don't know select. I don't know what select means. As you can see here, I don't know what select means. So I need to pass all the structure that's gonna do, and you can get the information back. Okay, there you go. So when you test it, I didn't save the file. There you go. So when you test it, it's gonna test for all the things. Okay. So if this is the happy path. So I'm just getting all the information that's good enough, and I'm passing to my function, and I'm receiving back everything, and everything seems to be nice. But if I want to block the user, because when we try to fetch for all the users, and I don't have if I'm admin, I'm going to get it all. But if I'm not, I should not be able to see everyone's information. And actually, this is not working. Let's see why. Because I didn't do any authorization into the queries, isn't it? So let's do that here. So let's do this. Let's do the return here. And let's do the ctx core and authorization. Okay, and let's pass the ctx and user read. Okay, I'm just going to create an authorization for reading the users. So if I don't have this authorization, it's going to say, hey, you don't have authorization to do that. If I'm admin, it's gonna give me the permission. So what I'm going to test now, it's not the happy path. Okay, so let's just do that. Again, it will not fetch for users with invalid user. So in the parameters, I'm going to pass this exactly the same thing. I'm going to pass the ID as new and deleted as false. Okay, and now with the permissions. Actually, I shouldn't pass the permissions like that. So I'm just going to pass an user with ID. So I have an ID, and actually it's going to be like that. So I will have the permission, and it's going to be a valid user. Let's just get the is valid, and use it as true. So I have a valid user in the system, but the user does not have the permission. Again, I'm just going to mock all this information, and what I'm going to do now, it's a try. Okay, why I'm going to do a try now? I'm going to do a try because the Apollo error will throw an error. So I'm expecting to test the thing when it throws. Okay, So I'm just going to do that to force the error to happen, but the errors it will actually happen here. Okay, this is just because when you are testing, if you pass something that's valid, it's gonna throw an error anyway, and because the expect it's here, so the test should be here. If something pass, it shouldn't. It's something pass. I'm just going to throw any error, and this is not going to be valid. For example, if somebody just go and change that, so do something like that, and removes the authorization. When the person removes the authorization, this is gonna pass. So this try is not gonna be catch it. So this expects not gonna run. So if this pass, because somebody just changed the business rule, I'm just gonna force an error, and the expect is gonna fail. Okay, this is why I'm doing that. And then I'm going to expect the error to have the property extensions. Okay, and I'm going to expect the error extensions and code to be user should validate. This is the I'm testing the other. I'm sorry. I'm testing the valid if the user is valid or not. In this case, let's just pass it false to be more specific. There we go. So pass. Do you remember that inside the authorization, I'm passing if the user are able to do what he's trying to do, but he forgot to validate itself. We need to show that. So this is what I'm testing here. So I'm just going to give it back the user read. Okay. So we will not fetch for users with invalid user. If the user didn't authenticate the email and did the validate user process, we need to catch that. Okay. So let's test it and see if it works. There you go. So did you get it, Bruno? The idea of this test?
Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it. I don't have much property about tests, but it's a very effective way to test the functionality. And I think the idea of the unit test is to do while you are just like you do some feature and you just do with the feature the test also, so you can the both of the feature and the test are built together. I think this is the idea, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And this is the reason I like to do the test file with the file that's testing, because it's just really clear. For example, if I open this folder, I'm gonna see, hey, there are 4 tests missing here. It's really clear when you just open the folder. I need a test for these, for these, for these, for these, you know, and I need to do all of that. So let's create another test. Okay. Oop. Let's copy these and let's use these exactly this one. I want to test the user it's valid, the user it's logged in, but the user don't have permission. Will not fetch for users with without permission. Okay, the parameters is going to be the same. I don't have the permission. Into the query now I have the authorization that needs this permission. Let's save it, but the expect is going to be different. So this is all the same. It's okay. It's going to do that and that, and it's going to need the extensions. So this is what we are expecting. So in the code, we are expecting and not authorize it. So we're expecting the error extensions code to be not authorized. Okay, and let's test it. See if it works. There we go, it works as well. So as you can see, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to do tests in the API. And I don't know why most of the people fears about tests or have some problems doing that. Of course, I did that before, and this was kind of a nightmare for me. And I believe that Jest has a better way to do that. Actually, it shouldn't be needed to do all of that. Um, you can you can before you start anything. Yes, okay, Bruno.
Oh, sorry, I
Don't
didn't
worry.
mean to interrupt.
Yeah, don't worry.
This would be my next question. Can we set up some kind of template of test so we can just generate the file? This is a just have a feature for that? Do you know?
It does not. It does not have a feature.
No.
For example, you mean to read my files and automatically create some tests for me?
No. Actually, kind of configure some kind of template, and in the next, because we are working with GraphQL, right?
Yeah.
Just like configure some base template so that uh, that we can use it, so the tests have like CTX, context, CTX actually,
Yeah.
database, connects, and all of things that you put it in this file,
Yeah.
and uh, just like set up some kind of template, and we just run on the code, and this is
Yeah.
created for us. This
Uh,
would be a nice feature.
yeah. Albus is talking about, for example, the before each or the initial state that you can define. For example, you don't need
So,
to do user ID every time like I'm doing here. This one doesn't need it. But you don't need, for example, to do this every time. You can just use a function here called before each, and just before it's gonna do before each test you have, it's gonna execute that and prepare the tests for you. It's possible to do that as well. It's a good practice actually. But when I was doing the tests for this API, some of the things change a lot. For example, the database, it's not always the same call. Of course, here it's gonna be very similar with all of them. So I could, for example, have a a CTX prepared. But for example, the user is changing, the params is changing. There's a lot of things that's changing, and this is the reason I've choose to put to every test, everything that you need about this test it's just here inside the IT. For these unit tests specifically, I don't think that it was necessary to prepare something, to use some before each or whatever. But we're gonna see that into the front end, this is gonna make more sense. But if anyone in the chat or wants to do something or do something better with this, please do. I'm going to commit all these things, do some pull requests and say, hey, this is a better idea. We could do this and that, and we can discuss in the lives in the next session and see how does that work. One of the things that I was talking about, when you do these kind of imports, okay, you can actually work with Jest when you can do something like, I believe that's just mock. Let me just remember what I do have something like that. Yes, it's just, it's not that. It's jest.off, jest.mock. I can do something like that, okay? And I can pass the calling. For example, I can pass this. okay, inside of the tests, and do like that. So when you call the these, I want, and then you pass a function, and this function should return what you expect as a return. For example, I could do like ID. It's gonna be, let's just get this ID, for instance. Okay, so what is this doing? This is saying, hey, when you inside of this test, every time you call this, okay, every time you call this is the answer. This means that I don't need to mock the database, so I don't need to do all these things I'm doing. I can just pass into the context. I can just pass the user. I don't even need the database in here, and I don't even need the next as well. This is not going to work here because we are working with modules, and there is a problem with Jest right now, trying to understand all the modules. Modules is something kind of new, so sometimes you're gonna get these kind of problems. But in the front end, we're gonna see that we're gonna use this a lot. We're gonna use this a lot. So let me just test, because the Jest that I'm using is new. Maybe it's working. Let's just, for example, remove this, and we just need this kind of information, and let's see if it's working. I saw some posts into some forums, some Jest forums, that they were trying to do that. What? Require is not defined. It's exactly that. So it's not going to work with. It's still trying to do the const something requires another thing, but I'm not using require anymore. I'm using modules. Okay, and for this reason, actually, the only way that the only way that this will be possible, it's in the future, when Jest updates and has this update to work with modules. Until there, we can just do that. Okay, so if I just remove it, there we go. It's gonna run. There we go. It's gonna. So I believe that in the future, Jest will update, and it will have the possibility, because Jest mock, when it does that, it tries to do a require, like it would do instead of doing the import read users that I have. It's gonna do in the old ways of Node.js. It's gonna do something like that: const read user equal require, and then it's gonna pass this. This is what it's going to mock. So I'm not going to do that like in the old ways anymore. I'm more modern, but Jest needs to get there. I'm even just let it here. Maybe in the future with just updating. Well, I just let it here, because if one day Jest updates, we will be able to use that. Okay. So until there, this is the way that we can check for the tests. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do the tests for the other things that we have here. But instead of actually writing all the tests, let's just get the test here. Okay. So merge user. Okay. Describe merge user as a mutation. Okay. We'll create a user. So I need to pass the parameters with all the information. This is the user ID that we're going to use as mock as well. This is going to be mocked information as well. And in the context, I need to get the core, and the encrypt. We are going to mock the encrypt the encrypt function, just to give us back encrypted and a true, to be more fast, because we just need to get this information from that. Email, we don't need the email right now because we're not working with that. We're going to do that in the future. And then the database with all the requests that's needed. So next is gonna do where, well, and all of that. And in the end, it's gonna do a get the merge user, pass the params, the context, and I expect that the answer of that, it's gonna be this time an array, because we are doing in the domain. As you can see, when you do the merge user, it's gonna answer an array. So we need to test that with the best way possible. So an array, and of course the answer, it's gonna be always the answer that next nest give us. That's gonna be this one. So I'm just comparing. So if the next nest answer that, and this in the end has exactly the answer that I need, this is gonna be a test that I want to. Let me just comment all the other tests that we're going to talk in a minute. It's a lot of tests, so let's comment it and see if the first one is working. Very good. So now I have the user's queries tests running and the merge mutation running. So the create users, it's actually working. Let's see. Do you usually work with static test data? Do you have worked with render generators? Would that be better to catch edge cases? Yes, this is a really good, really good question. I've worked with the random generators, but I had some problems with some of them that sometimes they create things that it's not in the scope of my testing. For example, some of these testers try to create something in some language that's it's not the language that's the scope of what I'm using. For example, it's going to get some Arabic thing or some Chinese random chars and put inside and test if this is gonna do. You can do that with this kind of chars as well, but I like to be more controlled. You know, I like to have the data more. The data should be more specific of what I want. In order to be sure that I'm testing what I want to test. And maybe you can just get, for example, we'll create a user with something fixed data, like you're saying, and you do exactly the same test. We'll create a user exactly the same, but the data is gonna come from some random generator for you, and you need to configure all of that into the platform. It's a good idea to do that, actually, but right here for this scope, I'm just showing the data fixed. For example, my name, it's gonna be my user, and email, it's gonna be a completely happy path of doing that. And I have the not happy into the other tests. For example, this one. But it's a really good idea for everyone that's in the chat. It's a really good idea to get this random generator data for tests. I don't remember by head a JS one, but you just can Google random data.
Alba say that he uses Casual API. Am I right? This is the library name.
I don't know. Faker. Yeah.
I think
in the Faker, we have Faker for Java as well. Albas is a Java developer, and I know that we have Faker for PHP and we have Faker for Python. I don't remember if we have faker um, Java, but
I
I believe
used
it.
Faker before in the PHP,
Yeah.
but it's a long time ago.
Mm. Mm.
I think it would be nice because the random data generates as the unexpected. So the user is unexpected, right?
He's saying that casual.
So
It's for
sometimes,
yeah. I'm sorry. Sorry.
sometime I think we could have both tests sometimes. I don't know.
Pin package casual.
Maybe,
Exactly what he said.
yeah.
Mm. And then you can just get the casual and do the sentences. It's gonna be a city. Mm. This is really good. It's the same idea of the faker. It's gonna be like that. Addresses have addresses, animals, commerces, and companies and all, and you can use that.
Yeah,
Myself,
it's
yeah, Bruno.
we have I saw that we have a lot of options. You can have some control of what would be returned.
Yeah, yeah. But and I believe that some cases it's not going to be here, so you're going to do the manual way anyway. So anyone in the chat, if we're working with tests, these are very good examples of random data that you could use, and use that. It's actually, as you saw, it's really simple. You just um, install the library, and then you get the information, the random information from it. You just call faker name by name. So in my test, instead of using the name just like here, I would do something like that. Okay, and the test is gonna be it's gonna run as well. Okay, but again, I like, this is my option. I like to do it more. How can I say, more tailored, just for this test, and it's you get more control. But if this grows up and you need more tests, you need something that's gonna test not just the happy path, but some cases that it's gonna be outside it. You could use faker, you could use casual that Albus send us in the chat.
I think the faker libraries is more properly to tests that you have to that you want that you need to have a bunch of data. So a screen that needs to be filled of data, or you need to test some pagination or something like that.
Mm.
It would be nice to have a library so you you don't to put manually a bunch of data. But I think in that case that Breno is showing here, it's not necessary to use a library.
Yeah, but again,
A li
it's good to have this kind of information in the chat, because it's gonna help anyone at home on the other side to do better tests. So these tests, we were updating a user as an admin. So I am an admin and I'm updating a user. How would I need and I have the permission to do that. So I need to be able to do that, and I need to test as well. The test that we need to do is I will not update the user if I'm not logged in. So users, if you try to call the backend with a user that is not authenticated into the platform, we need this person to not update any user into the database. Okay, so this is now the test is gonna be like the same thing, kind of the same thing over and over and over again, but with some different steps. Okay, so the other one it's gonna be like I will not update the user with invalid data. So I'm just passing, for example, name as M, picture as H, and as I'm validating the data, I should receive parameters arguments. It's invalid. Okay, and there we go. Let's test it, and there we go. It's passed. Okay, so again, it's the same thing. I'm just varying the information that I have in order to receive what I expect to receive. Okay, and then I will not create user with invalid data. This is gonna be exactly the same thing, but with some different invalid data. It will delete a user, so I need to test if I can delete a user or not. So it's exactly the same thing again. The parameter is gonna change, so I'm going to pass this ID, and then I'm going to check for the deletion process if the deletion process is it's valid. Again, it's just a parameter here, so when I go to merge user, this is gonna get us here. So I need this information to do that, and it's gonna say I will not delete a user if I'm not logged in. So again, it's gonna be exactly the same thing. It will try to delete the user with all the parameters, and it's going to create the context. I don't have a user in the context. When the user is not logged in, it still gets to the application, but with a new ID. And this is what I'm mocking here, the mocking of the database, and then it's going to call the merge user and do all of that. Let's check for all the tests. There we go, it's passing. Will not handle a user if it's not a valid user, so I will not be able to update a user. Yeah, and it's gonna you should validate. Okay, so this is the last test. So the test is gonna be like that. I didn't do all the proper tests, unit tests. For example, I'm just testing if when I pass an invalid data, I'm receiving back, just like here, I'm receiving back the parameter arguments is invalid. But I'm not testing, for example, when we did the create user with these, I'm not testing, for example, exactly for name. I could do that if I want to, but I'm just testing for the code. So if anything is wrong, I'm just testing if anything is wrong. If you're working in a company and you want to properly test everything, you would test everything that I have here. So I would pass a name that's not valid and check if the name is not valid, and then check for invalid picture, check for invalid email, check for invalid username, check for invalid password. So you would check for everything. Yeah, in a real case, you would check for everything. But as I have the code, I'm just checking for the generic idea of any of the data it's not valid anymore. Okay, and this is gonna be the test. The refresh token, it's gonna be really similar to what we have. So it's this function, it's gonna pass and delete all the information, create all the tokens and everything. So I need to mock all this information. So I have everything in the context, so the test it's easier to do because all these, as you can see, the refresh token, all these things that's calling delete user, create user, the encrypt and the error handling and creating token and all these things, it's in the context. So if I just mock the context, I can mock everything that's inside my function. Okay, so and then this is just database call. I'm mocking the context.database.next. So all these things is gonna be mocked as well, and then I can test what it's just my business rules. Okay, so I can just do that. It's gonna choose the two tests is gonna do. It's I will refresh user token with a valid refresh token, and I will not refresh the user token with an invalid refresh token. Okay, so it's just going to do the tests, and let's check it. There you go. So I have the user's queries, merge user mutation, and now I have the user login. It's not a user login. It's a refresh user token. So refresh user token. Okay. Let's do the test again and see. Okay. These warnings saying that the modules is experimental. The modules is not experimental anymore. It's already something that we are using, but for Jest, it is still experimental. So this is the reason we have these warnings here. Okay, nice. So we need to do the tests for user. Okay, so we need to test the user login. We'll log in with a user. So if I pass some username and some password, it's gonna be it's gonna do all the encryptation thing, and in the end it needs to give me back a token. Okay, so let's test it. Okay, but these shouldn't create token. Yes, token is ABC. The create tokens here. Okay, it's ABC. I was just curious about that. Okay, so what I'm doing again, I'm just mocking everything. The create token function, the encrypt function. Again, everything is the context, and this is why you never import a library into a application. See, I've never done something like import. For example, we are using Nodejs. I would never do the import Nodejs from Nodejs in here. I would put the Nodejs into the shared, okay, into the core of my application. The core will be merged into the context, and then the context will be used into my function. This way, I can just mock everything into the context, and everything inside my business rule will work. This is the best way to do the software with Apollo, with GraphQL, and this is the best way to have a better way to do the tests. Okay, so never in the application just write it into a paper and put in front of you. Never into a application layer import any external library. You should get the external library, put it into a context, and inject the context into the function, and then use that. Okay, this is the best way to do it. So user login, it's working, and then in the end I just need the validation. Let's paste it here. Okay, and let's test it. There's a test that's not working. Invalid user. It's this one. So we will not validate a user with invalid token. Okay, it's passing the token, it's creating the core and everything, and it's getting invalid user. This is in the authorization. Did I change the authorization? Where is the token verify? invalid token. Why it's giving me invalid? I was expecting invalid user and I'm receiving invalid token. What? Let's just get this. Okay. User ID. I'm passing the parameters. I'm going to get the token, and then I get the user by token. It's gonna get the user. It's gonna give me invalid token. So the test is wrong. It's not invalid user. Nice. Okay. So this is invalid token, not invalid user. This is testing. This is testing. There's another one. I expect this token to be this one. It's two different tokens. Well, I would just think of that later. Let's just start with this one. When I pass an invalid token to validate a user, this is both of the things that's going to answer. So it's going to always answer invalid token. I believe that in the past I did the invalid user here, but as a security reason, we just do invalid token for everything. We don't say that, I didn't find the user for that token. You just say the token is invalid and just answer that, okay? And now let's just check the token that's creating and check if it's the same. Okay, so we have two different. Let's see which was the test that failed. The test that failed will validate a user. Okay, it's the first test. So this one is not passing. I'm passing the user, the parameters, user core, and I don't need that right now. No problem. So it's going to create refresh token. I can't test it anymore. What I've done into the where's that? I think crypt, I believe. I've made it more random. I've added dates into the yes, so it's not going to give me always the same token. It's gonna be always something different. So I can't test for the token. So I need to mock the token as well. And okay. So I'm just going to go to the tests and it's going to call the create token. I'm passing that and the create I don't have it here. Okay, it's inside the core, the create token, this one. So let's just mock it now. Okay, so what am I going to do? Into the core, I'm going to get everything from core, and I'm just going to get this create token, and I'm going to do it here. It's going to be another function, and this function do that, and this is going to return. When I call it, it's going to return a token. Okay, it's just going to return a token, and let's test it. Perfect. So now I just faked the token. It's gonna be always the same. No matter what token I create into my test, it's always going to give me back a string called token. So when I test it, when I do that, and create this exactly token, okay, I will check if the token created by user mock, it's gonna be exactly the same. In the past, I've created tokens that was exactly this. It was with the same data, and now I put some random data inside the token to make it different. Or it's this, or it's because into the create token function. Yeah, no, it's not here. It's valid using. Okay, the God stack, then the God stack. Yeah, it's because of that. So now it's gonna always give me back the same token, so I'm safe to test it, and the test is passing. Okay, so now that I have all the tests into my application, this means that the business rules layer, what we should do now, it's to test all this information. So we should create tests for everything that's inside the core. But I'm not going to do that right now, okay? Because before we end everything, I want to show you where do we use that, okay? Because we are using these here locally. So this means that you need to trust the developer to run the tests every time it does a task. The problem with trusting people is because you're trusting people to do that. So what we're gonna do, I'm just going to commit it. So we'll create tests for user domain. Okay, nice. Okay, I forgot to add everything. Okay, let's send it. Perfect. So there we go. Now my repository, and let's go to our repository. It's gonna be TGS. Okay. Now I have my repository with the API. Okay, and I want to run the tests into the API. Every time I commit anything into the main branch, I want to run the test. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to use Git Actions to do that, okay? And then I'm just going to set up this workflow, okay? And there we go. It's going to create it automatically for me. And what it's doing here, it's doing on release types created, but actually I don't want it to do that into that way. No, I'm not going to do that automatically by here. I'm just going to do that by hand into the application. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, if we want GitHub to do that for us, we need to create a folder here, a special folder called GitHub. Okay, and inside this folder we need to create workflows. Okay, so workflows, and inside of the workflows we are going to pass some information to the GitHub in order to understand what's the step-by-step that's needed in order to test our application. Okay, in this case to test, but you can use workflows for different things. I'm just going to create the first one. It's going to be API YAML. Okay, so I'm just going to create a YAML file here, and let's get this. Okay, there we go. So I need to name my workflow. So the name of the workflow is going to be Nodejs GraphQL. It's going to be API. Okay, Nodejs GraphQL API, and it's going to run every time I push to main or I do any kind of pull requests to main. Okay, Perfect. The second thing that we need to do is to create jobs. So there we go. The first job that we can have, it's gonna be the build. So it needs to build my application. Okay, and I'm going to do that. Okay, so runs on. This is gonna be the image that I'm going to use for the building and the testing process. So it's gonna be the latest Ubuntu. Okay, this is Ubuntu server, so it's a lightweight thing, and I need to give information to which directory I want it to run. So I'm going to say it's going to be the API folder, just like this, because we are going to work with monorepo. So we will have the API and the SPA in the same folder. So I need to say, hey, for this workflow, I need you to do that just for this folder. Okay. So the other thing that I want to do is to define the strategy. Okay. So it's gonna use Node, the version 14. Any version 14 is gonna just get the last one. Okay, and then I'm just going to get the steps, and it's gonna do these steps. And let's think about it. Okay, so I'm using Ubuntu. I'm just copying all these folder into the Ubuntu, and I need to use the Node.js 14. And for the steps, I want to check out, of course. So I want to go to the GitHub and check out to my own repository and copy everything that's from there. I need to use Node.js that's defined into the matrix, so it's gonna be the 14. Okay, the Node version of this is gonna be the same thing again. I need to get some cache. So if I run the same project twice, in the second time the Node modules folder will be cached, and I'm doing that just like here. I'm just getting every time you saw a Node modules folder and you check for the yarn lock. Okay, if the yarn lock changed, you need to do all the installation again. If the yarn modules didn't change it, so you can get the cache that you have from all the Node modules with all the libraries that's in there, and you can use it. Okay, because it's gonna be exactly the same. And then, of course, you need to do the yarn install. We're going to run the lint, and we are going to run the tests. Okay, so I'm just going to save it, and I'm going to push it into my GitHub repository. We'll create CI process, and let's see what happens here. Let's go to TGS. There you go. Let's see. Git actions. Yes, it's working. So it's running here. Let's see what it's doing. It's running the first job, and it's waiting to start. There you go. It's setting up the job, and it's going to do all the steps that we've done. So it's going to check out, use Node.js, check for some cache. We don't have cache yet because it's the first time, so it needs to do all the things. It's gonna be a little bit more. It's gonna take more time to do that. So let's wait for the install thing. It's gonna run the linked passed. It's gonna run all the tests. There you go, all the tests that we created. It's gonna pass, and it's gonna cache in the end everything. And as everything is cached, it's gonna say, nice, it's perfect, it's working. So if you go back to this, now you have a check in here. Okay, Let's check what happens if a test fail. Okay, so let's fail a test on purpose. Let's get some, I have tests here. Okay, so for example, I expect these to match the object ABCD. ABCD, yeah, okay, that can be yes. Let's see if it's not working. There you go, it's not working, so let's commit it and see what happens. We'll commit failed test. And let's commit it. Let's go back. Did it. So let's see what happens. Okay, I should have a yellow ball here. I don't know. I don't have the yellow ball, but it's okay. And then again, we'll commit failed test. Let's see what's going to happen now. So it's setting up. Setting up the job again. Okay. It's doing all the cache. As you saw, it faster because the yarn lock didn't change it, so it just gets the cache, and the yarn test didn't pass it, so it's failing. So this build's gonna be marked as failed. Okay, so if you go back to the TGS, now you have an X, a red X here, saying that this test is not passing. So you need to do something about that. And as you can see, everyone will see that you have a problem in your test. Let's test one last thing that I want to do. Let's just make it work. So we'll bug fix tests, and we already know that this is gonna work. Let's just run the tests in here. What I want to show you, it's something really nice that you can do. What we are gonna do, we go to the settings, we go to the branch, and we're going to add a rule to the brain main. Okay, requires pull requests. Okay, requires status checks. Okay, status checks found last week from the repository. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to be very simple here. Just going to do that. It's going to, okay. So now I have a rule. Okay, I have a rule for the main. So I can't commit on the main anymore. The only way to do that is to open pull requests. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to git checkout fail test. Okay, let's just create a branch called fail test, and I'm going to on purpose make this will fail test on purpose. Let's continue to do that. Let's add it. Okay, do that, and let's send it to the repository. Okay, so now if you go to the repository, you're gonna see that you have two different branches. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a pull request, new pull request, and let's create a pull request from what? Compare. Yeah, I want you to do a fail test to the main. Okay, and let's create a pull request. So fail on propose. This is just a test to show the PR process. Okay, let's create a pull request here, and it's gonna run the same CI process that we did before. It's gonna run in here, and if it doesn't pass, as you can see, it's running. In the end of that, it's not going to pass. Running, fail, perfect. It's not perfect. Well, it's good that failed because we need to test that. If you go back and refresh that, let's see. There you go. So this is not passing. So you see in the PR that you do that the tests are failing. So when you don't have the option, to merge. Well, you actually have the option, but the option is really red here saying, are you sure you want to do that? Because some things it's not passing, and it's not that good. So we need somebody to review the test, and we need all the tests to pass. Okay, so let's just make it better. Not this. I just need to add it again. Will bug fix tests. Okay, let's save it. Let's send it. Okay, it's there. So when I send it, it's gonna do all the process again. So as you can see, it's gonna check for the API, and let's see. Let's just get to the details. It's gonna be real fast one because we have the cache for everything. It's gonna run the test. That's gonna pass. There you go. There you go. The test is passing. So when you refresh it, it's gonna say all checks have passed. Now we just need a review into this pull request, and as you can see, the first one we have a problem, and now we don't have a problem anymore. We need reviewers. In this case, I don't have a reviewer here. Bruno, I'm alone in the repository. I should add Bruno to the repository, and then he could be the reviewer. Let's see, where do I do that? Manage access, I believe. Invite collaborator. Do you have a GitHub, Bruno? Yes, of course you have.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. What's your
I will send.
Bruno?
Type in my email address.
Yes, Bruno.
Bruno J. Kurt.
This one. Okay. Add Bruno to this repository. I believe that you're gonna receive an email in order to be a collaborator. It's pending yet. So
I will check my email.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have anything yet.
I believe now you do.
Yeah. Let's add reviewer. There we go. Now Bruno is a reviewer, so he can just review the code. So he just I believe I don't have the option because I'm the one doing the pull request, isn't it? But you have the option around here somewhere, isn't it?
I think you need to update the pull request. Did you update it?
Yes, I did it. Now you are the reviewer, as you can see here.
Changes, fail test.
Checks is passing, commits. There you go. You can just go to the file changes, change it, I believe, and the review. You can just, you know, approve. I can't because I'm the one. Yeah.
Just a second.
Did you get it?
Yes,
It's
I
file,
have.
review.
I was searching because I don't have. We don't have any files, so I was looking for a file, but it's not. We don't need. We don't have a file.
Yeah.
We just.
Yeah. Click to approve and submit review.
We have checks. Okay. Approve and submit.
There you go. So now that Bruno approved my PR, so I can merge it safely. So all the tests are passing. My colleague did the, he actually didn't, but you get the idea. He did the code review, so he looked for all the information. What's going to not require merging? It's blocked because it needs to be approved. Exactly. You need to update the rules to require that job to pass. Yeah. Yeah, we actually did that. So now that everything is safe to send it to the main, we're just going to do the merge. And actually, let's just do that again. You have some options here. So you can just create a merge commit. That's the simple merge. You can squash and merge if you want to, because, for example, you have, in this case, I just have 2, but you could have like 100 different commits in here with different things. When you send it to the main branch, you just want to have just one line of this, so you can use the squash and merge. So both of these informations will be turned in just one. Actually, let's use this. So you can do the squash here. So I can just, you know, showing tests. Let's just do that, and then confirm squash and merge. It's going to be merging, and there we go. Now this pull request is merged. As you can see, it's not showing here anymore, and then you go to the TGS and the process is gonna run again, because we said that for every pull request and for every update that you do, this is gonna run. What distro do you use? You mean my computer, into the containers, into the CI process? I don't know what kind of distro are you talking about. If you're talking about the distro in my computer, okay. So what I'm using right now, it's this one. So I'm using Pop OS right now. It's in the version, I don't know. No, it's not that. Let's see if, no, this is upgrade. But I believe that's the version 20 or something. So I'm using Pop OS 20 something. And but I'm just waiting for Fedora to update to the version 34, because Fedora 34, I'm Fedora user actually. Pop OS is not something that I use with a lot of. I don't have a lot of experience using Pop OS. I just used Pop OS because I needed the mainline. The mainline is this thing. I wanted the mainline to update the kernel because I was having problems with my Bluetooth thing, because the Bluetooth was not working properly. So I needed to update the kernel to the version 5.10. Now it's 5.12, but anything around 5.10. This reason I couldn't update into Fedora the kernel, and then I changed it to Pop OS to do that for me, because they have the mainline. but with the new Fedora 34, in the moment that I have Docker into Fedora 34, I will go back to Fedora. But this is the distro I'm using. I don't know if this answers the question, but that is it. Inside, NVIDIA works well and looks. I see you have RTX. Yes, I have an RTX 38, and works pretty fine. I've played all the games into the Steam. I have Steam, so I'm work with that a lot, and I've used to process some things as well. I'm starting to learn artificial intelligence. Don't ask me about artificial intelligence because I don't know. We have Melky Dev. If you want to know about artificial intelligence, go to the Melky Dev channel. He's a really good guy and knows a lot about artificial intelligence. I'm just starting, but I'm doing some tests with the RTX 38, and it's working really, really, really good into Linux, and I'm really, really, really happy with that. Here it is, Pop OS 20 10. So, well, with everything on place and working, I believe that it's it for today, guys. So we did all the tests and we did all the CI process. The next thing that I want to do in the next live, there's something that's bothering me. The Docker, the way we are using Docker for this process, it's not the best one when you want to go live. Okay, this is not the best way to use the Docker and the Docker images when you want to get your code and put it live. We need to improve the security of that. And the other thing that we need to do, we need to create a automatically process to get all this information and send it to a Docker Hub, for example. Okay, and that's what we're gonna do in the next live. In the next live, we will improve the security of the Docker for Node.js. We're gonna make it faster, and we're gonna make it ready for production. And we will understand how to push an image to Docker Hub, and then we will be able to use that image in any cloud that we want. If you have a Kubernetes on DigitalOcean, or if you have Google Cloud, or if you have Amazon or whatever, you will be independent of that. You will have a CI process that creates everything, creates the image for you, and pushes it into the Docker Hub, and in the end you will be free to use any cloud that's available, and you will be free from the cloud, and you will be used to that. So the next live will be focused on improving security and understanding how to work with the CI process for, in this case, for the backend. Okay. So Bruno, any doubts about it? Do you have anything to say? How was the live
No,
today?
I got it. I was not so how can I say participativo. How is the word for that?
You were, yeah, I don't get it as well in English, but it's, yeah.
I was. We don't have a word for that, guys. But yeah.
Okay.
But I learned it a lot. I'm not. I don't master the tests, so it was very 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 helpful. I will do more. I know that I need to be more concerned about about these make good tests. So I will pay more attention in that.
Yeah.
Contributing. Yes,
Deborah said that
Deborah.
contributing. Yes, he
Yes,
was not that contributing, and
yes,
yeah,
perfect word.
and
Thanks, Debs.
yeah, Deborah is the one that we went into our lives to talk about tests. She's one of the best test engineers in Europe. She knows a lot of test development. So
Very good to know.
maybe in the future she will give us a little bit of her knowledge and help us a little bit talking about tests. Um, this is one of the things I like. I wanted to do. I wanted to do in the future of these lives. When we finish the API, when it understands all the backend, DevOps, and all this process, and we will get the professionals, the real professionals, just like Deborah, just like Albus. I know them. I know that they are really good. So we're gonna get these professionals. We will go back to the code, and we will talk about engineering, in a high standard of engineering. So that's it. Thank you very much to be with us all this time. See you in the next live again every Tuesdays and every Thursdays from 6 to 8 in Brazil, from 22 to midnight